joining us today. Today I have Lyndi Shaw with me on the podcast. Lyndi is an empowerment coach who lives in an incredible little mountain town in BC, Canada. And she's been there for about the last 10 years and lives with her partner and 2 rescue pups in a community that's really just passion-filled and heart-led and with a true sense of community. And she loves things like snowmobiling, snowboarding, mountain biking, and outdoor adventures. So completely outside of my area of expertise, being in an area that just does not have much snow at all here in Australia. So I'm going to throw it over to Lyndi to introduce herself in a bit more detail.
Sarah, and thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here. Yeah, I mean, one of the most unique things, or I guess not unique, but complimentary things to what you said is there's so many Australians here. It's incredible. We've got a very large population of them in a lot of ski towns in Canada, and some of my dearest friends are from your neck of the woods, so maybe one day I'll even get to come and visit.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That would be so amazing. We've spent a lot of the last year together, so that would be really cool. Yeah, I would say aside from what you just shared, I'm an empowerment coach, and my biggest draw to that is being able to help others with tools that I've had to learn, had desire to, and almost necessity to learn over the last few years as I pulled myself out of just that excessive overcommitment cycle that some of us find ourselves in. I was constantly tired. I felt burnt out. My life felt dull. I was quite regularly completely exhausted, resentful for the things I said yes to. The list goes on. And after being a yoga teacher at this point for almost 10 years, it was about 2 or 3 years ago when I was like, I can't keep doing what I've been doing and be fine with it because it does not feel fine. And that set me on a path to learn more about somatics, and the modality that really intrigued me was EFT tapping. And so I did a certification in that in 2021, and in early 2021, and have continued to put a lot of focus in breathwork studies to amplify that side of the yoga modality. I've done an empowerment coaching certification and spent the better half of the last year and a half just really working through how I want to hold space for other people, how I want to share the impact that these tools had on my life. Because at first it really was just about healing myself. And as that impact grew, so did the desire for me to share what I was learning and what I was experiencing. So that's where the mission that I'm on now was birthed. And I want to continue to hold space for others to use these tools and practices and find answers within themselves. Because that's probably the biggest takeaway that I've gotten in the last couple of years, being in containers like the one that you and I just completed, a mastermind with our business coach, where when someone holds us to get quiet and curious, that's where our own self-clarity comes in. And so that's where I just find so much magic, and really here to help people amplify the little things because they feel like the big things when you really step back.
So true. So true. So I guess this is why I wanted to have you on, because there's so many parallels between what the 2 of us do. So as a lot of my listeners will probably know, I love helping women in particular, and busy professional women, particularly salespeople, to actually be able to have days with a lot more energy and to not feel burnt out. So very, very similar in that regard. So I always start my interviews with a question. What does strong, healthy, and glowing mean to you?
I love this question. It means a lot. And when I really sat back and thought about it, I would say that strong to me, it's not just about physical strength, like what you can lift or what adventure you can take yourself on, but it's also to me the willingness that you have to make changes to things that no longer work or feel aligned, even if at some point they did work. It's about having that strength and courage and bravery to take a step that is different than the ones you've previously taken so that you can come back to what you need. Being healthy to me is nurturing all the aspects of health, mind, body, and spirit consistently. And I don't mean to make that complicated. I genuinely believe that it can be in the little things. It might be that extra 5 or 10 breaths with intention in the morning when you get up, or it might be meal prep to be feeding yourself better, or it might be saying yes when you mean yes and saying no when you mean no. All of those things together, I truly believe, help bring an abundant amount of health to us. And it's just, I find something that's often overlooked. And as far as glowing, that just comes from within. To me, it really means filling your own cup first. So taking action from desire, speaking your truth, going back to that saying yes when you mean it and no when you mean it, taking care of your own energy and your emotional and physical environment. All these little things help us glow from the inside out. It means being more attentive to what brings you happiness and letting that take up space in your life. And with all of that, it brings confidence to handle situations with more ease and grace. I really feel that it's also helpful, like when we're glowing, we're able to let there be more focus on the glimmers than the triggers. I don't know if you've heard about the glimmers. I've seen it on Instagram in the last year or so, and it's like focusing on those magic little moments that just spark joy, like it might be the smell of your coffee or a flower or the way somebody like held the door open for you, or I mean, the list goes on and on, but letting those things be where we bring focus before the negative. It really just means owning your truth and unwaveringly having your own back. Yeah.
That is so good. I love that answer. There's lots of little nuggets in there. So yeah, I'd heard of the glimmers, but not really delved much into it. So that's really interesting. So I'm going to go right back to the start of all of that. So I know you do a lot of outdoor activities and that kind of thing with everything, with the environment that you've got at your back door. So I'd like to delve in to start off with the strong bit and physical health and that kind of thing. So what will be some of your top tips for that side of things and empowering ourselves by strength and physical health?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, sounds cliche, if you don't use it, you lose it. And yoga. If we don't strengthen and lengthen our bodies simultaneously in some portion of our activity, we are more prone to injury. We're less able to build strength because, say, muscles are tight. I think that that's such a powerful part. And it was really amplified for me this weekend. Small little story. My dad was in town visiting, and he's almost 70. He'll be 70 in just over a year. And we went to a really strong yoga class together because it's shoulder season. It's really rainy and cold, and there's not much else to do yet. The snow hasn't started really falling in town. And anyway, at almost 70, this man who's been an athlete his entire life has put a lot of focus on yoga in the last 10 to 15 years. And it really shows. And it watching him practice beside me the other morning, it just really emphasized to me my own personal commitment to my practice, to moving my body, to sharing it, and to making it accessible for people. Because I think that if we can't move, and if we're not connected in capacity to our breath and our body, we're more prone to injury. And the more injury that comes up, the less we're able to be strong and get strong and maintain that strength. And so I think something like that really helps strengthen and lengthen your body, and something that you enjoy is part of the ticket to maintaining strength. Because if it always feels like a job, and if it's something that you want to roll your eyes at, or just like, ugh, I really don't want to do this, it doesn't bring some of the other aspects of being healthy into it, like mind, body, and spirit. If it's something we truly enjoy, there's magic there. Maybe it's a community sport and you love the social. Maybe it's an outdoor adventure, and those like moments where you can hear the silence are what motivate you for all the hard things it took to get there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Totally.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of space for people to feel like they have to do something in a specific way, the way we've been told and taught things. And I truly think that as long as you're strengthening and stretching and making sure that there's enjoyment in it, that's how you get to be able to be 70 and still have balance and flexibility and strength and a willingness to sweat. I think there's two very different examples of that age. And I'm so grateful that I have parents that really exude usefulness. And it's really inspiring, and has been more so in the last decade for sure. And yeah, find something you enjoy and keep doing it, and doing it consistently is key, even if it's 10 minutes.
Yep. So true. So digging into that yoga side of your practice, so what and why should people practice yoga, and what do you think it's really good for? Because it's something I love as well, so I'd love to get other people's take on this too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it brings all three aspects of health together: mind, body, and spirit. And I think that when we intentionally connect to our breath while we're moving, we're able to notice different areas of sensation in the body, different emotions that come up when we're, maintaining a pose and it feels hard or challenging. It's like those are the moments that build strength. Same with you're on a bicycle or you're in your soccer practice or whatever. Those really hard moments, they build strength. And I know that in a lot of sport, people, they focus on their breathing in some capacity. And I think that there's something really magic that happens when you roll out your mat. It becomes this like zone all for you. And everybody's experience is different. Mine was that the more I came back to my mat for me, the more I built trust in myself that I could back myself. And the more that I backed myself, the more it became a priority to do the things that help me feel better. And there's just something so powerful, like about, gosh, you can help calm your nervous system down by something as simple as putting your hand on your chest and breathing into your palm. Like, we're so much more complex than I say complex, but in another way, we're almost as simple. One end of the spectrum or the other, I'm not totally sure, but it's like we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And it comes back to simple things. And I'm so passionate about yoga, and I think that it's something that I would love for it to be something that everyone does. And I also will never shame somebody if they're not. But all we can do is lead by example. And the more that we lead by example, the more it might inspire somebody else to get on their mat, to try it out, to do a 10-minute practice on YouTube, to start to fall in love with it even when it's hard. Because, and our business coach has said this before, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And when we learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable on our yoga mat, it translates to everything.
Yeah, so good. And you've mentioned breath and breath work a couple of times as well. So I'd like to dig into that because I know, a lot of us just think, breathe in, breathe out, it's simple, but it's so not as simple as that. So there's different qualities to the breath and that kind of thing. So I'd love to dig into that a little bit with you as well and expand upon that with tips, tricks, what is breath work, and then getting into some tips and tricks perhaps and suggestions.
Yeah. My love with all of this started with yoga, and I think it started with yoga and then stuck with breath work. And it's anything you need it to be completely honest. It's this power that we have within us that literally can evoke, release, help alter the emotions that feel really present at any given time. There's so many different types of breath work that can happen. For example, if you're feeling emotional and sad, and like just, yeah, kind of worked energetically, like I mentioned, that hand on your heart and breathing into your palm, like slow, steady breaths. Maybe you count to 4 or 5 on an inhale and then pause, and then 5 or 6 on an exhale. You do that 5 or 6 times and you're signaling to your nervous system, I've got me, I'm safe, I can relax, I can like bring it down a notch. Benefits to that are as like vast as helping your busy brain calm down, or just helping bring a little bit of self-compassion to a really hard situation. On the flip side, you could be feeling anger, like, when you feel it in your chest or your jaw or everybody holds it in different places. For me, it's those. Sometimes my neck too, like just tension, like, ugh. Something like breath of fire helps you move out the hot, like the fire that's within you, and helps cool down that anger. So there's so many options for breath work to be something that assists somebody in whatever it is they're going through. It's a really powerful tool, and definitely recommend seeking support on the start of your breathwork journey, knowing what to look for, what not to look for. There's a really great book I've got on my bookshelf over here called Breath by James Nestor, and I couldn't recommend it enough. It talks a lot about how the breath works in our body, techniques, all of the things. It's such a powerful resource. And breathwork's even really helpful for things like releasing shock. Say you're in a car accident, and something that's really common in like really traumatic accidents is, as a protection, I won't get too much into this, but our diaphragm, it'll lock or tense up and contract to protect all of the organs around it. Like the diaphragm is like kind of where the cage isn't, right? Like it tenses up to protect everything. And lots of times people stay in a state of not being able to like fully heal the thing that's been injured from said accident or whatever, because the diaphragm is stuck in that locked mode. So and you might start to notice that over time. Say your hand's on your belly and it feels like you can inhale into your chest, like a small breath in, but it's hard to fill the whole way down. Working things with different types of breath work like that help to loosen a tense diaphragm, and then ultimately help you bring more breath or prana, like your life force energy, or in Chinese medicine, they call it your qi. Like it helps keep things moving, because when there's an area that's stuck, the whole loop isn't happening, and it makes it harder to heal the spot that is in distress or injury, or whether it's emotional or physical. Breathwork is so powerful. Yeah, I could go on and on, but
I love this. So if people are looking for support and think this could help them, is this something you can help people with?
yes, definitely. It's one of the modalities that I really love to share and work people through. It's the way I start almost every single yoga class. And it's magnificent in helping, like, some of the more calming breath works. It's incredible what shifts in, I mean, and the other ones, like all of them, but I often start a yoga class with a really calm one, because people like, it's this funny thing where we like rush to the thing that's going to bring us a calm, peaceful environment. And I don't know about you, but I'm always like 1 minute early for a yoga class. Like, I'm barely in there on time. People are often in like a bit of a heightened state arriving, and it's so quick to help you drop in. And when I say drop in, what I'm referring to is dropping into your body, so that you can kind of let the outside noises, sounds, sensations, just all of that, either kind of get fuzzy into the distance or just like melt down. Let them not be your focus. And bring the attention and the focus inward. And what a gift we give ourselves if we let ourselves even start the day like that. Like, keeping it simple. If you've got 20 minutes, great. But if you've got 3, also great. Yeah, definitely happy to help. And with that, and also especially the other one is EFT. I love working those together to help people release what feels stuck, move through the things that feel really present, come back to themselves with love and compassion. It's definitely a big part of my focus in my empowerment coaching.
So what is EFT? So I've never really dealt much with it. I've obviously heard of it. So I'd love for you to elaborate on what it is and how it can help.
Emotional freedom technique is what it stands for. Often referred to as tapping, or EFT, is more of how you'll hear about it in general. And it uses the meridian points of your body, similar to the same meridian points that are used in Chinese medicine. So if you go to like a Chinese medicine acupuncturist, oh, pardon me. Sorry, just going to let these dogs out there.
Yeah, oh, good.
Here you go. They were feeling the dinner time and partner's home, so they're like,
oh, good. We love the furry friends.
We sure do. They're those two on their own have gotten me through a lot of hard times. Anyway, back to the EFT. So you tap on the meridian points on your body while talking about things that currently feel icky, essentially. Things that you're not loving how they feel. You're noticing them in your body, like, how sadness, I mean, anything. We spoke about anger already, and how like it comes up for me in my jaw and my chest, and sadness can come up like when people say they've got a broken heart and their heart hurts. Like, there's certain emotions and certain scenarios where we feel that viscerally. And EFT is a beautiful way to acknowledge exactly what is being felt, whether emotional, physical, exactly how it is, what you don't like about it, what feels really true for you, speaking it in exact words. So when I'm leading someone through it, I have a little chat with them, and then I use their words, because that becomes the most resonant thing. So you tap on that, And then the way that I use it is we shift into starting to become open to a different way of feeling or looking at something, and then into how you want to feel, and starting to use the power of affirmations and manifestations while you're tapping to basically shift from how you feel in this moment to how you want to feel. And on a somatic level, it helps release the heightened emotions. It helps to move them out of your body. It's really common to watch a client have a lot of yawns. You might even burp, like you might have tears. Any of these releases are really common. They're literally ways of our emotional body releasing, letting the thing out. So, yeah, it's also an incredibly simple tool available at your fingertips. And that's part of why I love these modalities so much, is that yes, it is helpful to have someone guide you through them, especially when you're getting started, and especially in kind of, bigger, when you want to be held through something big. And it's available to you every day in between those sessions and on your own. And in that moment where you feel heightened, or maybe the grief of losing a loved one is like literally taking your breath away in that moment, you can help bring it back by tapping or by breathing and being with yourself. 30 seconds, 5 minutes, however long you need or have time for. I just love that they can be tools that are used to hold somebody in like a client scenario where you're really going deep and getting really intentional on one thing, and it can be something that gets used in the moment. And I think there's a lot of power in both, and using them both in different scenarios. And it's also really, I think the biggest thing for me with tapping over the last few years, I got a lot more involved in it in probably, I think, 2019, and before I did my certification. And the biggest thing I noticed was that when I put focus on tapping, my confidence built to be able to handle the things that felt challenging. So it's not like it takes them away, but it helps build that inner strength to manage it, to move through it, to face it instead of skirt around it. You know, that thing like the only way out is through.
It's so true, though. It's so true. We so often look for those quick fixes and, that kind of thing. And we don't want to go through things, and we just want to fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you often, and almost with all things, need to go through these things to get to the other side.
Totally. And when you don't, that's where they get stuck in your body, right? These emotions that you may trying to be sweeping under the rug, or bypassing, they're the ones that start to cause long-term effects on your body. That sort of hip that you can't sort out. Like, what emotion are you holding there? What happened that's where you just stuffed it? So it's really incredible, because I did a year of cleaning in the last few years, and it was just because I needed space from people and like being on at work all the time. And that was when I was a full-time server. And so I got to go to work and not have to talk to anybody. And in that year, I learned a lot about myself, because I had a lot of time with my thoughts. Even though I was like busy working, I had so much space in not having to be engaging with people the whole time. And it really just became more and more clear to me that things that were coming up when I was young, I thought, oh, it's fine, I'll just whatever. It's like, they weren't fine. And 15 years later, I was feeling them in places when I was like tuning into it. And that space that I had in that job, I didn't love the job, but it was a blessing for me, because it was exactly what I needed in the time. Like, very little responsibility, other than just getting things done, and so much space to learn about this stuff with podcasts and to just be in silence with myself and just really realize the things that felt true and then incorporate what felt true into my tapping really shifted things. And I just can't emphasize enough, like sometimes we need to go through maybe something that like feels a little bit dull, but then actually has like an underlying magic to it. Getting what we think is our needs to be regular routine and shaking it up a little bit to figure out what the next truth is, because something could have been true in the past and worked for a long time, and that's great. And then it starts to not be great, but it's sometimes hard to notice when it shifts. I think this kind of pulls back all the modalities, but the more we're in our body with our breath, addressing the emotions, addressing where they are in our body and inviting them to release, all of those things, this comes back to your first question, all of those things help us glow and find our own truth. Because like I didn't get my truths from somebody else telling me what they were. I got my own truths by somebody holding space for me to figure out what they were for myself. And I think everybody's reason to glow is different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the adaptability of all this is what also I just find so fascinating and so powerful.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because it does. Our emotions affect so many other things in our body, and you know, we talk about how our gut impacts our health and gut impacts our emotions in a couple of my previous episodes, but then we don't often think about how the other side, how the emotions affect our gut and our health. So I think it's really important to draw that side of the equation in as well, that the emotions then affect the gut, and you know, our thought processes can affect our gut and our health as well. So, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to elaborate on in that regard? So, in how emotions and that kind of thing impact things?
Oh, I'm sure we could go on for ages, but it really just comes back to tuning in, and if it feels uncomfortable because it's new to you, please know that that's normal. Some days feel harder than others. Like some practices feel harder than others. Like maybe you go through the same yoga routine 2 different days in a row, and one day you're like, oh my gosh, that was the best class, like absolutely loved it, it's exactly what I needed. And then 2 days later you do it and you're like, oh my god, I just got worked. And so the really cool thing is, it's like yoga or breath work or EFT, like they're a big umbrella, and there's a lot of specifics underneath any one of those things that can be adjusted to make it be what works for you. Yeah. I know that kind of that language can be a little bit nerve-wracking to people if it's new to them. Like, I'm not flexible enough to start yoga. And it's like, I've been teaching for almost 10 years, and like, I can sometimes touch my toes with straight legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
it's not just about that. And I just would love to remind people over and over that you're worth the effort and the time and the intention, and nobody's watching. Like, no, if you decide to go to an in-studio yoga class, nobody's watching. Everybody's focusing on their own practice or what they should be doing or what they don't know how to do, and there's someone guiding you and holding space for you and available if you're stuck or need help or don't know what to do or if you're doing it right. And know that you can't do it wrong. Like, breathing and moving your body, that's it. And if you get to a class and you feel like all that you can do is lay down and pay attention to your breath in the breaths that you remember to pay attention to it, that's still yoga. So yeah, I guess my advice to anybody if they're seeking advice is just to keep it simple, to show up for yourself. And the more we commit in little ways, like maybe it's 5 minutes in the morning, maybe it's, I don't know, 15 minutes before bed, maybe, like, it doesn't have to be these 2-hour blocks, but the more we show up, the more it starts to feel good. And it might not always feel good in the moment, but it feels good overall. And that's what becomes the motivation. Because all of a sudden, that little tiff you got in with your partner, you were able to like come back easy and it didn't get so fiery. Or you took a little fall on the ice. I guess not in Australia. That's a bad example, but like you took a fall on the ice. And instead of like wrenching your neck and tweaking your back, you just got a bruise from where you landed because your body isn't so like this all the time. You give it space to release sometimes. So it doesn't have to start big and complicated. And I encourage you to start.
So good. So just going back to something you were mentioning just before, Lyndi, about, not being flexible enough to do yoga. So what would some of your tips be if people are saying they don't have, they're not flexible enough, or, one thing I hear often is I'm burnt out, I don't have enough energy to do that. How would you recommend they start to overcome those kinds, or work with those kinds of thought processes, to get to that point where they can then have that, or do those things that are going to help to light up their life and say more, really dig in and say more please to what lights us up. So how would you recommend overcoming those kinds of, well, I could say negative thought patterns, but the things like I don't have enough energy, I'm burnt out, I'm not flexible enough. What would your
I love this question. I would say first, the biggest reminder that I want to give people is that these things help build the energy for all the other things. So let me hold that belief for you until you can hold it for yourself. And then beyond that, I would say, like, if you were to just brand new to this and you wanted to pull up a video on YouTube and typing in yoga class felt a little too broad and you were feeling tired and like you just need things to be really simple, it's like maybe it's a slow flow or a yin class. Yin is where you hold each pose for up to a couple minutes at a time, so it's like very little moving. If you feel really inflexible, or maybe like things like downward dog, where that classic pose where hands and feet are on the ground and your bum's up, if that doesn't feel accessible to you, no problem. What about chair yoga? Like, you can sit down and like start to do stretches, bring your arm out to the side. Maybe you're doing neck stretches. Like, you could Google any of those on the Google or the YouTube or wherever. I'm also absolutely available to like jump on a call with someone if they wanted to talk more one-on-one about it and what that might look like. But props, you get into a pose and you're like, oh, this is a little too spicy for me. I am the queen of props. Blocks under my hands because I've got long legs and short arms, like things like that. Pillow under my knees because my hamstrings are tight. I always sit on a bolster, like a pillow or a chip foam block, because with all the other adventure stuff that I do, I've got tight hips. I've got strength in my legs and my glutes, and my hips are all, and my knees they've been through like, just different snowboard injuries over the years and stuff like that. And so there's certain poses that don't feel good for me unless I support myself. And so the coolest thing about using props is that we have to let go of our ego enough to let ourselves support ourselves.
Yeah.
So that would be a few things, and always up for a conversation if somebody has questions. Meet yourself where you're at. And the last thing is, if you're in poses, if you're doing yoga and you're in poses and you are holding your breath through the pose, that is a telltale sign that you need to back out of it a little bit, Like go to that edge where it feels a little stretchy, but you can still fully breathe in and out. Because once you go beyond that, you're risking injury. It's not really yoga anymore because you're not breathing and moving. But ultimately, you're risking hurting yourself, and that's absolutely not safe. So stay with your breath, use props, find simple classes online or at your studio, or have a chat with me, and just like be gentle with yourself and know that you might get into a pose one day and it feels easy, and then the next time you're in that pose it feels hard. That's okay. That could be anything from an emotional distress to maybe you just had a big run or a different adventure in the last few days and your body feels different than it did the last time. Like none of this is a cookie cutter linear process. We call it a practice because every day you show up and it's
nice. Yeah, this is just so many little nuggets to pull out of this. I love it. I love it. So one of the last questions I wanted to ask you, Lyndi, was all about how can people create some really powerful, simple shifts and practices to help them create new normals? Because I know that you've had things shift in your life through some of the techniques that you use and that you have used. And yeah, I'd really like to dig into that, how people can create some of those simple shifts and, you know, what practices they can use to help them really get to a point where they've got that energy and life feels more manageable. So what would some of your tips, tricks and techniques be for people?
Oh, this is another good question. You've got really good questions. I feel like I could talk about this for a while, but I won't. I'll keep it really simple. It comes back to things that you have an interest in. B, it comes back to things that feel manageable. So when you're starting out, it's not about keeping the commitment that I'm going to go to a yoga practice 4 days a week that's an hour and a half long and takes me 20 minutes each way to get there, and I'm going to be there all of these times and everything else is going to get put on the back burner. It's about, instead of that, it's about integrating into your life. So how do you start your morning? Is there something you could shift in it? Do you give yourself a break in the middle of the day to move your body and go for a short walk if you've been sitting at your desk all day? Start to pay attention to how you speak to your loved ones and how it feels for you when you're speaking to them. Start to pay attention to, we call them energy leaks, but it's essentially things that take more of your energy than is necessary. That thing that's always on your mind, and like it's on your mind for so much longer than it would have taken to just like do the task. Like you have power, and some things are beyond our control and we have to surrender to them. And then there's things that are within our control. And the more that we back ourselves and the things that we have control over, the more it becomes essential to back ourselves and put ourselves first. So start small, 5 minutes. Maybe you do a brain dump first thing in the morning in your journal or on a notepad of like the thoughts in your head. Just get them out of here, because if they can come out of here and be on the paper, you don't have to hold them. You can come back to them. Or instead of picking up your phone first thing, which I'm not always good at, I'm going to disclaimer right away, but spend 10 minutes with your breath. Lay in bed and just like count your breathing. Maybe you're not even changing it that morning. Maybe you're just paying attention to it. How can you savor, I don't know, your breakfast or your tea or coffee first thing in the morning? Like, I really genuinely believe that it comes back to the little things. And the more we let the little things be glimmers, the easier it is to build practices that nourish us and nurture us and help us grow and build confidence. And it looks different for everybody. So if you're feeling confused on where to start, you're welcome to reach out to chat, but it really genuinely, it's not a one size fits all or a one answer fits all question. And it's also something that might change within your own seasons of life. So there's so much to it, but start small, hold yourself accountable to small attainable goals, and then it will start to be easier to make them bigger. And then you'll start to feel the motivation to keep them because of how it feels. Maybe it's adding or eliminating something in your diet. Like there's so many options. What you use on your skin, what you don't use on your skin. I could go on and on and on.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, so could I, particularly when you start getting talking about skin and all sorts of things. I love it. I love it.
You can have a part two.
Yeah, we've covered off a few tips and tricks. Now, I know we've been on here almost an hour now, so I guess I wanted to cover off what have you got on and how can people work with you?
People can work with me in 3-month one-on-one containers at the moment. I love holding space for someone to get clear about how to start making the shifts that they need and desire, what that even looks like, and then really backing you as you start to implement it. So that's one of my biggest suggestions. And coming out with a bunch of recorded practices. So that'll be another way to have more bite-sized pieces of a practice to use, like maybe a few times a week, a tapping session for 20 minutes in your own home, things like that. I'll have a website live, I think, by the end of the year. So that'll be a place to really share it. And I'm also available to do like if a 3-month container feels like too big of a commitment, I'm also, from now till the end of the year, taking three punch pass sessions. So like essentially for 333, you can have 3 sessions with me that'll be likely a mixture of coaching, tapping, and breathing. Some or all of that, depending on how our conversations go. To really like feel into the magic and let that be the thing that you commit to that builds the motivation for the bigger changes. My website will be live, yeah, I would say by the end of the year. So I can update Sarah when that's a go. And in the meantime, you can connect with me by emailing me at Lyndi@lindyshaw.com. You can also jump into my DMs on Instagram. It's Lyndi.connected. And really looking forward to connecting with anybody who'd like to. Yeah, there's going to be a lot coming down the pipes in 2024. So I highly suggest jumping in now, jumping on my newsletter. I can also give that link to Sarah to put in the show notes if you'd like to be on my newsletter. I'm going to be starting to send a bi-weekly letter out with tips, with practices sometimes, with journal prompts, things to think about. So yeah, definitely in the early stages of being in the online space, but I've been holding this space for a long time and really keen to really keen to connect. Hence the name. It's like my
Awesome. Well, I'll pop all the links in the show notes, and if anyone's keen, definitely jump on over, check out Lyndi's Instagram, message her there, and there will be a link to sign up for newsletters and that kind of thing in the show notes as well. So definitely sign up there. So many tools and tricks and tips that I think will draw a whole heap of value, and just as Lyndi said, keep it small. Sometimes those small little shifts and small little changes can make such a big difference, and I really believe that as well. So thank you for joining me today, Lyndi. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
I'm just full of gratitude right now. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, it was really special. It felt like there was a lot to share, and there's a lot more of where that came from, and it was a pleasure to connect with you in this way for sure. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Lyndi. I've had a great time talking to you today, and I think, even I've learnt things today that I think I'll be able to take with me as well. So I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts and comments in the comments section below. So if you've got any comments, please feel free to reach out. Any questions, if there's anything you'd like us to delve into in more detail in future episodes, please also reach out. So I look forward to seeing everyone on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today, Lyndi.
Thank you.
Thank you.